Marwa, it is really nice to see you. Thank you for taking the time today. We're going to talk a lot about what is the current situation in South Sudan right now. But first, can you just give us a lay of the land and let everybody watching know where it is that you are?
Absolutely. Good to see you again, George. I am in the middle of the World Food Programme's compound in Juba, South Sudan. This is a huge plot of land that's been designated solely for our operations. Behind me is the main road that leads up to the gates of the compound, after which you just go right into the city.
South Sudan is the youngest country in the world, and it didn't get to be a country without much grief, much pain, and much violence, and much history. So can you give people just a brief overview of how we got here and what the people in South Sudan are dealing with now?
Yes, as you said, 10 years ago, today or this month, the South Sudanese people had the right to self-determination. The country became its own country, gained independence. Unfortunately, though, 10 years later, the country has been beset by multiple factors. One of them is the ongoing conflict. Groups in areas that are underdeveloped tend to fight one another, sometimes to the death, in order to get access to precious resources. Now, South Sudan is a very rich country. It's at least twice the size of the United Kingdom, and there is only 12 million here. So there is enough for everybody. However, areas such as Jonglei, which is a little bit north from Juba, is extremely underdeveloped. There are no roads, there are no waterways, there are no markets even. And so people are constantly left to their own devices. Another issue of concern right now is climate change. Unfortunately, extreme weather patterns have been increasing in South Sudan. The last 2 years, we've seen biblical deluge and flooding. People have often gone hungry. We know that unfortunately, there are areas that are likely to hit famine if assistance is not unrolled immediately. And in those particular and highly vulnerable areas, the World Food Programme has been scaling up its assistance. We've been calling on donors and the international community to move in as fast as possible.
A famine doesn't happen overnight, and that there are signals and there are signs, right? Warning signs. So things can happen, can be put into place beforehand, right?
That's what the World Food Programme has been doing for the past 60 years. We call it famine prevention. We monitor the situation, then we raise the alarm. And this early alarm mechanism comes through our assessments that we conduct with the government and other humanitarian agencies. And so in the case of South Sudan and in Yemen, as well as Burkina Faso, in the Sahel, and parts of northeast Nigeria, what we've done is we've pushed out a call to action saying, look, in these particular vulnerable areas in these 4 countries, and particularly in South Sudan, where I am right now, people are going to die if we do not step up our aid assistance. It's not enough to give people food once and then, let the donations peter out. We must continue to resiliently keep track of who is eating, who's not eating, and not leaving no one behind, basically. This is our motto for South Sudan and the world.
What are the effects on the work of the COVID situation?
George, you've touched something that was really moving, COVID, and how does it people that we serve, but also our staff. Unfortunately, in the course of the last 2 weeks, we lost 3 colleagues. It was really a big shock. We lost them to COVID. These colleagues were long-standing serving staff, humanitarians. 2 of them are South Sudanese. Our hearts go out to their families, and one of them was from the Congo, and he was actually a close friend of mine. I had a difficult time overcoming this. Unfortunately, when you're a humanitarian on the front lines, serving people, you can't rest.
You're a human being, Marwa, and you just lost a friend, a close friend, and so as much as you have to do the work, because that's what a humanitarian does, this has got to be a tragedy. It must be really overwhelming at times.
Absolutely, George. It was truly overwhelming. There were a lot of tears shed here on this compound. These colleagues were very close to us, and we mourned them. We took the time to grieve, and we're still grieving. We have a memorial for the 3 of them coming up this Saturday. And You know, it's tough, it's hard, because the World Food Program is a first responder organization. What does that mean? It means that if we're not operating on the ground, if we pull out, if we suspend for a short period of time, people die, people hungry, children become more and more malnourished. So we need our nutritionists on the ground in the clinics. We need our people on the front lines delivering food assistance, because people survive on this and they cannot survive without it. And so it was a tough call. Our country director, Matthew Hollingworth, made that decision. He said, there is no way we're going to pull out or suspend. We're a very crucial organization for the survival of the South Sudanese people. Unfortunately, George, right now, 60% of the country is extremely food insecure. But there is hope, because we're still here. And in order to continue having hope and see success after success, we have to put out this call to action, this alarm call. So we're telling the world, look, don't give up on South Sudan, because South Sudan can be a successful story. It can become a happy story.
For many situations, people think that job creation comes after the crisis has been dealt with, but that's not the approach here.
We're turning the equation on its head here in South Sudan. We're telling the world, donors included, the general public, we're saying this, look, in those areas where there's fighting, when you Google South Sudan and you hear there are tribes fighting one another in Jonglei state, it's because these are disenfranchised tribes. These are tribes or groups, ethnic groups that don't have access to a day-to-day job. And so what they end up doing over the course of time, because their men and their young men are idle, is they engage in these kinds of gang-based violence. And so what we're saying to the world is, allow us, the World Food Program and our partners, to move in with job creation opportunities. Once there's some kind of job being offered, whether it's teaching a specific trade or building a road that connects that community with that local market a couple of miles away, this will actually get the people busy. It will get them working, and gradually people will no longer look to cattle herding or fighting or killing to grab the extra cattle or that extra piece of land or that water hole.
To affect meaningful, sustainable change, there's no one thing, one size fits all. There are myriad issues that have to be tackled from a bunch of different ways, right?
Absolutely, George. And South Sudan is the prime example of this multifaceted or multi-sectoral response. Emergency aid must continue. This country, as I was saying earlier, is facing ever increasing levels of hunger. And this is not because we're not around or there's no aid already, there is, but things are becoming more challenging. There is COVID, first of all, and it had actually affected the lives of many. A lot of people lost their jobs and their livelihoods. There is climate change right now. Flooding is something, to this degree at least, that we've seen in 2019 and 2020 is to a new level that people were not used to. And so they've lost everything. And then, of course, there is the ongoing conflict. The World Food Program, remember, is here to build or bring about peace, to help to bring about peace through food.
Thank you for joining us and telling us these stories. And we want people to help in any way, but how can people become mobilized and engaged after watching this?
Thanks for asking that, George. I wanted to raise that point. People can help out by informing themselves. Look up the World Food Program and other humanitarian agencies that are active in South. Up on the South Sudan story, the youngest country on the planet. Let's help it thrive. Because once these people thrive here, South Sudan could become the breadbasket of Africa. Why not? This is great. It creates jobs, business, momentum. So inform yourselves. I'm calling on all my Canadian countrymen and women. Look up South Sudan, inform yourself. And when you're feeling generous, please give to South Sudan. Give to any agency. It doesn't have to be the World Food Program, but just get involved somehow. Talk to people about it. The more and more we know, the more we can have influence over our governments and our politicians so that they can pay attention to helping South Sudanese people abroad in South Sudan.
Thanks so much for taking the time today, Marwa. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.